Story 1, The Dead House. The house wasn't on any GPS. No mailbox, no records in the county assessor's database. Just a faded pink foreclosure slip stuck to a crooked post at the end of a gravel road. Nobody remembered being there the day before. Carter drove the van, yawning hard enough to pop his jaw. Next to him, Felix chain-smoked, scrolling through Zillow like it owed him rent. In the back, Tara rested her boots on the cardboard boxes marked hazmat, in red Sharpie, earbud dangling, as she hummed along to something electronic and sad. They'd been clearing foreclosed properties for 5 years. Old people who died in their sleep. Meth trailers. Even a motel once, where a guy painted Bible verses across the ceiling in his own blood. They'd seen rot, mold, and worse. This one didn't scare them. Not yet. The driveway curved like it was trying to lose them. Woods thick with sleeping trees clawed at the van's sides. When they reached the clearing, the house stood hunched in the middle of a dead lawn. Not decayed, just wrong. The angles didn't line up. The right half looked like a 1950s Cape Cod, all peeling white paint and window shutters hanging sideways. The left half was older, maybe Civil War era, with soot-back bricks and narrow windows like slit pupils. In the middle was something else entirely, a sort of glass cube, fogged from the inside. "Got the lockbox code?" Carter asked, killing the engine. "Nope," Felix said. "Didn't need one." The front door was ajar, a strip of crime scene tape fluttering from the knob like a yellow tongue. No cops had been here. No reports, no previous occupants. Just a HUD file that appeared in their queue one morning at 2:13 a.m. They stepped inside together, and the house breathed in. The 40er was all mahogany and brass, the kind of decor rich folks liked in movies. The chandelier above them hung like a spider, crystals dulled by dust. A staircase wound up to the second floor, but the banister only went halfway and then stopped, clean cut like someone had deleted the rest. To the right, a hallway led to a narrow kitchen with avocado green appliances and a rotary phone on the wall. It smelled faintly of milk gone bad. To the left was a room with floral wallpaper and high-backed chairs that belonged in a Dickens novel. The air changed from room to room, like crossing into different climates. "I'm getting the creeps," Tara said, rubbing her arms. Felix raised his phone to snap a picture and frowned. Dead battery. Carter checked his own. Black screen, no power. Mine too. They split up. Standard procedure. Tag and bag anything valuable or hazardous, toss trash into the red bins. But the rooms didn't follow logic. Tara opened a door, expecting a bathroom, and stepped into a child's nursery. Everything was covered in clear plastic. The crib, the stuffed giraffe, even the mobile above, frozen mid-spin. A cassette player sat on the floor, humming with no tape inside. She turned and the door was gone. Only wallpaper, the same pattern from the foyer. Tara pressed her hand against it. Warm, it pulsed beneath her touch, like a heartbeat. Carter found himself in a room full of typewriters, dozens, maybe hundreds, stacked on metal shelves. Each one had a page rolled in. Every page said the same sentence. "This is not your memory." He backed out slowly, hand on the wall to guide him, but the wall twisted, warped, like wet cardboard. A corridor unfolded in front of him, shifting with each blink, doors vanishing and reappearing like magic tricks performed by a crueler god. Felix ended up in a basement that dipped into wet earth. The walls were made of different materials, stone, drywall, plaster. One even tiled like a bathroom. The floor was soft, spongy. He looked down and saw something like skin stretched tight over the ground. Veined. Breathing. He ran. Or thought he did. But the stairs were gone, replaced by a hallway filled with framed photographs of his own childhood home, rooms he hadn't seen in years. One photo showed him standing in a living room that burned down in '97. Only he wasn't smiling, he was screaming, mouth open, no eyes. They all met again in the glass cube. Somehow they just ended up there, together, gasping. Tara looked pale. Carter had cuts on his arms he didn't remember getting. Felix was muttering something over and over under his breath. "We're inside it. It's not a house. We're inside it." In the glass room, there were no walls, only reflection. Every direction showed themselves, but distorted. Older. Deader. One reflection had blood down its chin, another wept silently, another was missing its jaw. "I don't think we can leave," Tara said. The front door was there again, just a few steps away, but it was upside down. Carter moved toward it anyway, touching the knob, cold as meat from a freezer. He turned it and the door opened inward. Behind it was not the yard, not the van, not even the woods. It was more house, a hallway lined with mirrors, and in each mirror was a version of themselves, some still walking, some crawling, some burning alive, and one in the far back, smiling calmly. It stepped forward, and on the wall behind it, written in soot, were the words, "This is your mine now." The door shut, the house sighed, and it rearranged itself again. Waiting. Story 2, The Widow's Bell. The town of Eddington's Reach barely showed up on maps anymore. Just a bent signpost off Route 9 half swallowed by moss, and a general store that hadn't stocked fresh milk since the Clinton administration. It sat in a cradle of pine woods and thick fog, the kind that rolled in slow and stayed late, clinging to your clothes like old grief. The locals had long since stopped asking why the church bell rang at 3:17 every night. They just made sure their doors were locked and their curtains drawn before midnight. More, the church itself, St. Luke's, was a skeleton. Its steeple had collapsed during a storm in 1912, crushing the altar and taking Father Hollis with it. They buried what was left of him in the cemetery behind the chapel, and no one had held a mass there since. Still, the bell tolled. One long, hollow note. Always at the same time. Always once. Daniel Marks didn't know about the bell when he arrived. He'd bought the old rectory on a whim, or desperation maybe. After Emma died, everything in their old house felt soaked in her absence. Her shampoo still sat in the shower, her books still lay open on the nightstand, a half-eaten banana turned to mush in the kitchen. Grief doesn't just haunt, it sits next to you at breakfast. So when he saw the listing for a quaint, historic fixer-upper in rural Maine for dirt cheap, he packed a duffel, took a leave from his job, and drove north without telling anyone. The house wasn't much. A slanted roof, floorboards that groaned like they were speaking a language he didn't understand, but it was quiet, and that was what he wanted. He unpacked, he opened a bottle, he stared at walls for hours, and that first night, as he lay in bed, with the windows cracked and the air smelling like cold pine, he heard the bell. It wasn't loud. It was deep, like it came from the belly of the earth, not the sky, a single toll, echoing through the fog like a question nobody wanted answered. He didn't sleep after that. The next night, it rang again, 3:17 on the dot. He checked his watch, he checked his phone, dead on the minute. And that night, as he lay staring at the ceiling, he heard something else. A whisper, faint, muffled, like someone was standing behind the wall with their mouth pressed against it, trying not to cry. He sat up, listened, thought maybe it was the wind or the pipes or his own unraveling mind, but then he heard the words, clear as ice cracking on a lake, "Forgive me, Father." The voice was old, worn thin, like cloth washed too many times. He stood up, heart pounding, and walked to the wall. Nothing. Just peeling paint and the faint outline of a wooden cross someone had removed long ago. The voice didn't come back that night or the next. But the bell kept ringing. A week passed. Then 2. The voice returned. Sometimes a whisper, sometimes a sob, always different. A woman, one night, begging for her child back. A boy, another night, confessing to setting a barn on fire. And once, a voice that wasn't human at all. It growled. Not loud, but low, like the sound of teeth grinding together in the dark. He didn't sleep that night, or the next. He started keeping whiskey by the bed. He asked around in town, careful not to sound crazy. The cashier at the general store went quiet when he mentioned the bell. The old man who ran the gas station just muttered, "Shoulda torn that damn thing down years ago." Daniel started digging. Old library records. Newspaper clippings in yellowed plastic sleeves. St. Luke's had been the only church in Eddington's Reach until 1912. The bell had been donated by a grieving widow, Agnes Whelan, whose husband drowned under mysterious circumstances in the spring of 1899. They said she rang the bell herself every day until her hands bled. After the steeple collapsed, she disappeared. They never found her body. The more Daniel read, the more the whispers came, not just at night now, during the day, while he made coffee, in the shower, in his dreams. The walls wept, not metaphorically, real water, seeping from cracks like the house itself was crying. The voices begged, threatened, repeated the same things over and over. Forgive me, tell them I didn't mean it, make it stop. And then Emma spoke. At first, he thought he was losing it, but it was her voice, that soft, tired lilt, the one she used when she didn't want to fight anymore. You weren't there. He fell to the floor, clutching his head. No, he whispered, no. Don't do this. You let me die. She had cancer. He'd driven her to every appointment, sat through every treatment, held her hand when she puked, bathed her when she couldn't move. And still, it hadn't been enough. She'd died while he was at the grocery store. Gone for 22 minutes. That was all. Now her voice leaked through the walls like smoke. The next night he followed the sound to the basement. The light didn't work, so he used his phone. The air was damp and close, the stone walls shimmered with condensation. And then, behind the boiler, he found the door. Heavy. Wood. Blackened by time. It opened on the first try. Inside was a narrow staircase, spiraling down into darkness. The smell was awful. Mildew and old secrets. He descended slowly, each step creaking like a warning. At the bottom was a stone room, empty except for an altar and a rope dangling from the ceiling. The bell rope. He was under the steeple. There was no mechanism, no bell, just the rope, swinging slightly, though no wind touched it. Whispers swirled around him, dozens of voices now, hundreds, all pleading, all stuck. The dead of Eddington's Reach, every last one, waiting for a priest who never came. And Daniel stepped forward, took the rope. Oh, I'm not a priest, he said, voice shaking. The whispers paused. Then one answered. You are now. He rang the bell, and it tolled back. Not once, but 13 times, each one heavier than the last. He screamed as the voices surged through him, sins pouring out, old griefs, dead names, unspeakable acts. When he woke, he was back in his bed. Morning light pressed against the curtains. The fog had lifted. The bell didn't ring that night, or the night after. But Daniel sits in the rectory still, pale and quiet. He doesn't speak much. The townsfolk say the bell is silent now, and the whispers have stopped. But sometimes, around 3:17 a.m., if you pass by the old church and put your ear to the ground, you'll hear it. Not the bell, a man's voice, whispering forgiveness. Story 3, The Scratchlings. When the realtor asked if she believed in ghosts, Maya laughed, not the forced laugh people give to be polite, but a real one, a tired single mom kind of laugh. She was 34, broke, and holding her daughter's hand while standing in a house she could actually afford, barely. Ghosts were a luxury she didn't have time for. What she did have time for was a fresh start, far from Boston, her ex, and all the broken pieces she hadn't figured out how to throw away yet. The house was outside a town called Wenton Falls, the kind of place where gas stations still had manual pumps, and everyone looked like they were related. The house itself was a 2-story colonial with good bones, as the listing said, which was just real estate code for this place needs a hell of a lot of work. The roof sagged, the pipes screamed when you flushed, and the wallpaper peeled like sunburned skin. But it had 3 bedrooms, a backyard, and cost less than her annual salary as a dental hygienist. Maya signed the papers that afternoon. She and Harper moved in on a Wednesday. Harper was 7, bright and quiet, with a sketchbook always glued to her fingers. Her drawings had started to tilt toward the strange lately. Long-legged animals, kids with blank faces, a recurring figure in the shape of a woman whose hair hung like seaweed. Maya blamed YouTube, or maybe the divorce. She didn't know. The first night the scratching started, it was soft, almost gentle, like a small animal with bad intentions. Maya had just crawled into bed, exhausted from unpacking, when she heard it scritch-scritch just behind her headboard. It stopped when she turned on the light. She wrote it off as rats, or maybe a squirrel in the walls. Old house, after all. They made noises. She made a note to call pest control. By the third night, Harper had heard it too. "They don't sleep," she whispered at breakfast, stirring her cereal into gray mush. "They're always scratching." Maya looked up from her coffee. "The rats?" Harper shook her head and drew a long, jagged line on her napkin. "Not rats, the kids." Maya stared at her. "What kids?" "The ones in the walls," Harper said. Maya told herself it was just Harper's imagination. New house, unfamiliar creaks, stress from the move, but something about her daughter's tone unsettled her. It wasn't fear, it was certainty. Later that day, while cleaning out the attic, Maya found something strange. Behind a pile of broken furniture was a locked trunk, old and water-damaged. She pried it open with a hammer. Inside were photographs, black and white, yellowed with time, all of children. Pale, wide-eyed, and unsmiling, none older than 10. In some, they held hands in front of the very house she now lived in. In others, they stood alone in rooms she recognized. The kitchen, the stairwell, even the attic. There were dates on the back, all from the early 1950s. A few had names scrawled in faded ink. Benji, Clara, Ellis. One simply said, 6. Still missing. That night, the scratching got louder. It came from the baseboards, the closet, even under the bed. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Like fingernails on wood. Maya couldn't sleep. When she finally drifted off, she dreamed of children with hollow eyes crawling out of vents, dragging themselves across the floor, their mouths sewn shut. Harper got quieter. She stopped drawing animals and began sketching narrow, dark hallways filled with shadowy children. Her favorite drawing was one of their house cut in half like a dollhouse. Inside the walls, dozens of kids curled into tight spaces, elbows tucked, knees to their chests, eyes open and watching. On the back of the paper she wrote, "They're still here, we hear them because we listen." Maya called pest control. They tore through the drywall, expecting nests. They found nothing, no droppings, no rodents, not even dead bugs. "You've got a quiet house, ma'am," the tech said with a wink as he packed up. Maya didn't respond. That night, the noise was worse than ever. The next morning, she woke up to find small handprints in the dust on the hallway floor. Tiny ones, child-sized. No footprints, just the hands. She tried to ask Harper about them, but Harper was already drawing. "They're getting restless," she said without looking up. "They don't want to sleep anymore." Maya finally broke down and went to the Wenton Falls Library. The town records were spotty, but she found a reference to a mining accident in 1949. A cave-in at Hollow Creek, just outside town. Dozens dead. Weeks later, several local children disappeared. No bodies, no leads, just gone. A yellowed article mentioned a binding ritual performed by a woman named Mother Drita, a local midwife who believed something had been uncovered in the mine, something old and buried. The article didn't elaborate, only that the town never reopened the mine and the children were never found. Maya came home that night to find Harper sitting in her room with the lights off. "They are almost done waiting," she said. "Harper," Maya whispered, kneeling. "Who are they?" Harper turned slowly. Her eyes were ringed with shadows. "They were forgotten, left behind to keep the thing below asleep. But it's been hungry a long time." That night, Maya pressed her ear to the wall and listened. The scratching stopped. Then, a voice, barely audible, like breath underwater. She lied. It never sleeps. The next morning, Harper was gone. No signs of forced entry, her window was shut, her bed still warm. But there, drawn in crayon on the wall, was a new picture. A girl walking into the wall, surrounded by children. They weren't smiling, but they were waiting for her. Maya called the police. They found nothing. No clues, no footprints. Just one note, taped to the attic door. In Harper's handwriting, "It's louder when you're alone." Now Maya sits in the house. She doesn't sleep. She barely eats. She just listens to the scratching, to the children who never stop, and a thing beneath them all, still waiting to wake up.